We're coming to you live from Kwale County, specifically the Swahili Beach Hotel. Story we're following for you tonight is the killing of Sheikh Abubakar Makaburi, or Sheikh Abubakar Sharif, known as Sheikh Makaburi, in Mombasa County. Our reporters on the ground will be telling you that as and when we get information. Of course, our big question tonight, we're asking, are county governments out of control? Our guest tonight is Chair of the Council of Governors, Isaac Ruto, Bomet County Governor as well, and Tharaka Nithi Senator, who's also the majority leader in the Senate, Professor Kithure Kindiki. We've been talking, actually it took more time than we had earlier planned, accountability. We'll come back to that. Let's go now to the issues affecting Wananchi. And severally, if we look at this 1 year of devolution, we've seen several counties where people have been up in arms. We've seen a lot of demonstrations in the issue of revenue collection. Do you think it has been done the right way?
First, let me say that sometimes one can understand some of these challenges, like the upheavals we are seeing, because the first governors, like the rest of us, are grappling with startup challenges. But that said, I think a look at the law could have avoided some of these things. Because number one, if a governor, for example, or a county government sat down with the citizens even before those measures are in place and told them in the spirit of public participation, which is in the Constitution, look here, ladies and gentlemen, we intend to raise this to this for the following purposes. You'll get better roads, you held us accountable for this and this and this. Many people would accept higher taxes. Instead, most of those legislations have not been done through public participation. Secondly, Article 209, Part 5 of the Constitution says that counties, when they're imposing tax measures, must not do so in a manner that will disrupt economic activity, will undermine movement of goods across counties. And if county governments were able to look at Article 209 and infuse the spirit of public participation, some of these things would not have happened. Because people are asking, you want to raise fees from 10,000 to 200,000. For what? And what is the contract between us and you if you raise the fees?
Yeah, I must agree with you that on the question of the finance bill, remember we were supposed to do so many things within a short time. A budget, a finance bill. A lot of those finance bills, for example, were done by our technocrats with little experience in public affairs. And in fact, some governors were also surprised that there were certain things in those finance bills. It's sometimes impossible to read everything, because I just want to be honest. Even in my case, I found certain issues which were not even in consonance with my own manifesto to the people. And as soon as that was brought to my attention, I took measures to withdraw it and to rectify it and send it back for public participation.
What would you have said that some governors may not have seen what is the finance bill?
Right.
Yeah, that is a grave admission. And for me, it actually answers some of the questions that have been lingering in the minds of senators, even as we look at the question of oversight. Why? Because if you look at the County Governments Act, Section 30, it's very clear on the role of the governor. And it says all issues around the use and application of resources, human resource, finance resource, rests in the governor. So to say, for example, that other people, in my view, notwithstanding what I just said, that there was inadequate time and startup challenges, to imagine that other people made these things, not to mention without the participation of the people, then answers the question why we are seeing the unrest, the upheavals.
Right, and I don't think I'm simply saying that we are therefore not accountable for that. I said I took action when I noticed that such a thing had slipped through my fingers.
But it's negligent.
And an admission that, look, something somewhere went wrong here, an admission and a move to correct it is quite okay. You can't tell me it's negligence. I have admitted, for example, in my case, and before my own people in Bomet, and I called them and I admitted that apparently something happened which wasn't quite right, because I want to make it that it is also against the manifesto I used when I was campaigning, because I had said there should be no taxation on Mama Mboga. There'll be no taxation on the border youth. I had mentioned several other things, but somehow something somewhere slipped through my fingers, and I called the citizens, and I admitted and I appointed a committee, including the citizens, to look at it afresh, and that was the end of the story.
That's good
I am
enough,
simply saying, that we as governors, we take responsibility. I have taken responsibility in my case of Bomet.
And he has cured it
So
in a way.
that,
Because,
yeah.
for example, when we were doing the Wambora impeachment, we were actually shocked that the governor kept on telling us it was not me, I am not responsible, I don't know. You know, and we just got worried because as a CEO of the county, both the Public Finance Management Act and the County Government Act is very clear that the buck stops with you. But that notwithstanding, really, we hope going forward, we are going to see greater,
these are lessons we are learning.
Greater attention to some of these issues.
Severally, you've said senators, and back to the Wambora case, you've talked about senators being lynch mobs. Governors have talked about senators not being there to protect and defend devolution. Why?
Let me first tell you the provisions of Article 96 says that the senator represents the county and the county government and will protect their interests. That is the basic reason for the existence of the Senate. Now, apparently in the Kenyan situation, there is no nexus between the Senate and the county government and even the county assembly. There is need for consultation between the senator and the county government and the senator and the county assembly and the people generally. So that it should be clear, let me just finish. The votes of a senator in certain tough situations is a vote from the county. In fact, it is a delegation vote. It is not an individual vote. It is not a vote like you would do in parliament. It must be a vote representing the county and the county government and the people of that area. Like him, Kindiki, should basically be representing the county government of Tharaka, Nithi,
and that
together
is,
with the assembly and the people there. Kindiki needs to tell me the nexus. How often does he represent the people of Tharaka Nithi? The fear we have, let me just finish, the fear we have and the worry we have is that you would find Kindiki seated here. And he will not be representing the people of Tharaka Nithi. He will be representing the government, the national government. Yet actually he has no business, absolutely no brief in terms of representing the national government. He should represent the government of Tharaka Nithi.
Because I can see where my brother is taking me to.
Whom do you
I don't
represent?
desire to respond to that. Let me say as follows.
But whom do you represent?
The next for us as Senate, we had actually identified certain gaps. First gap is the need to consult, and that's why we came up with the board. The board for just consultation and advisory.
For control.
Number two, listen. Number two, number two, you are the bosses, as we have read chapter 6.
All right.
Number two, other than that, we have now amended our standing orders to provide that every 3 months the senator will address the county assembly.
Okay,
so that you can get feedback.
Professor, critics have been talking about the Senate indeed not being keen to consult the county governments and governors. And an example is like the mechanisms put, and he has said he accepts responsibility in some of the things that have happened in revenue collection. Can you pinpoint, of course you can speak for all senators, but can you pinpoint issues or where senators have tried to consult governors and county governments on revenue collection? Or did you just hear them on TV?
No, we have actually before,
you just led
they irretrievably broke the relationship by going to court. In fact, part of the summonses by the Finance Committee were about the issue of the riots we had seen across the country over taxation. Well, and the Senate actually wanted to rein in this thing to help counties to perform.
And again,
but they ran away from it.
But again, with all due respect to now you reacting to that, the question is, where were you before that happened?
Sorry again?
Where were you before that happened? Where were senators before that happened? It's like you were not really in the affairs of the
counties. We protect counties. Let me tell you where the problem is.
It's not a question of management.
The problem is here.
It's a question of consultation.
If you look at 96.2, it says that the Senate will enact legislation, especially legislation on counties. Up to now, I am leader of majority. I control huge priority in the business of Senate as leader of majority because I'm leader of government business. I have not received a single proposal from the Council of Governors telling us these are the things we think the Senate can help us in terms of the challenges they are facing. They have refused even to use our office.
Who is supposed to institute that?
Let me first tell you, the question which my colleague is refusing to first recognize is that he represents the county of Tharaka Nithi, the county. And how often has he, as the senator, consulted with the governor, the county government, and the county assembly there, creates a nexus and bring issues. I mean, Tharaka Nithi doesn't have to create a bill for him to bring to Parliament. He can just listen and he creates the requisite bill to table in the national government.
You don't think they're really participating in?
They have not. And I want him to withdraw the word irretrievably, because we are working very well, actually, in spite of the little disagreement over that particular part. We are working with the Senate.
And for Tharaka Nithi, by the way,
as an
we meet
institution,
every month with
remains
all members of National Assembly, with the governor. We consult like daily.
What do you
so
think?
if you have problems in Bomet,
so do you represent
we do not
them?
Have such
so what have you brought from Tharaka Nithi?
But so many things, including the motion to support the headquarters
before we move to another issue.
And
there's no need to get past.
Thank you very much. You are doing very well.
Yes.
Before we move to another issue, like I said, one of the issues that is at the heart of the Mwananchi is revenue collection. We've seen demonstrations going out. You've talked about taking responsibility in some of these things.
Yes.
What should be done? What is the way forward? Because people are still suffering and they're
Now, according to me, and we are going, and that is why we're having this conference here. We've got to share best practices. We've got to understand where we've gone wrong. How do we correct them? We must look at them, because you see, a problem arising in Bomet will affect the smooth running of the county of Tharaka Nithi or Mandera. So we really have to look at those issues where we have also made mistakes, because reflection is the milestone and checking what the challenges are.
Right.
And these challenges include situations where we've come up with a finance bill that turns out to have very unpopular provisions in it. We should remove these unpopular provisions, and we should be careful in the coming...
As the Council of Governors, can you promise to champion that?
I will, and I will mention even in my speech tomorrow.
But then how will you raise revenues? What other means will you...
No, we can maintain revenues. We are not supposed to load too much mzigo kwa wananchi. We have got to be fairly consultative. In fact, we should be consultative, and then we should make sure that whatever rates we are charging are agreeable rates.
Okay, let me get his response
to
that.
The problem we are having now is that the Council of Governors, and by the way, not all governors, most governors are cooperating very well with their individual senators and even collectively with the Senate. But a few governors, and Isaac Ruto, the chairman, is one of them, has this idea that when he's engaging the Senate, for example, in the protective mandate of the Senate, for example, when we are asking for more money for counties, he's very happy to submit to the authority and the mandate of the Senate. But the moment we start looking at 96.3, which he has carefully avoided, about oversight, Isaac Ruto then thinks Senate is an enemy.
93 together with 226?
But having said that, let me say as follows. We do appreciate that the setting up of counties and the county system is a Herculean task. And especially the first governors, they are going to really have to be the trailblazers, and there is going to be a bit of guesswork here and there. But that must be within certain bounds. I wanted to say this, Hussein, that if governors were honest enough and humble enough to realize, yes, they have a bit of power, executive power in the grassroots, and they are not obsessed with this big man syndrome, where they think that devolution means the big man whom Kenyans didn't want in Nairobi has now been devolved in the village. If they were humble enough, and I really recommend chapter 6 of the Constitution, if they were humble enough, some of these challenges cannot be as devastating. As Senate, we are willing to partner, to work with them, even when they don't recognize some of the things we're doing.
Right, we have to be a bit brief. We have to be a bit brief. You've talked about them being humble enough, and critics have been talking about them getting priorities wrong, especially in terms of development. 1 year, of course, you cannot really peg 1 year with development, but still, do you think the priorities have been right vis-a-vis what is being said as them being thinking about devolution about themselves? And are there any tangible things that you can say have happened in 1 year?
To be fair enough, I am very worried at the trend that we are seeing, especially with regard to obsession with a large life.
No.
Number of
How
cars,
about deliverables?
number of
deliverables?
buildings, mansions.
Which buildings?
And I want to tell you, if there is something that is worrying to the common person, it is that trend. But
Right.
but I think
These are imaginations. Because take, for example, which county has built mansions? Which county is spending large? Which county is doing what my friend is saying here? It looks like their problem is that they perceive the county, the governor, to be somebody large, extraordinarily large, and they are worried about the size. For us, for example, I don't have many cars. The problem is, look, when we arrive at a function, there are so many people. I'm also worried. There are so many people following us. Most of them are businessmen in town. And you can see 30 cars. And the senators think that all those cars belong to governors.
There's no way we can prove that.
Yeah.
There's no way we can prove
No,
that.
I was with you the other day and we looked at the TV.
Yes.
And we could only see 2 cars of a governor.
The
But
others
you
are
are telling me
businessmen.
the entire 30 vehicles
why are businessmen
belong
following
to...
you?
I
And that's
don't
why
know.
I'm saying the culture of the big man. And
So
the
what do you do?
argument,
Do you
the
stop people?
argument,
Gentlemen,
saying-
let's talk about the what you have delivered.
We have delivered,
tangible
and,
for them on NG.
and I want to suggest you look again at the reports of the controller of budget. For example, counties. I will take an example of mine. We have used 42% of the money that we've been given on development. National government, during the same period, has only used 10% on development. I have used 42% on development.
To do what?
To do development, water, roads, health, education, and then agriculture, and a number of other institutions. But the big elephants in the house are health, water, roads, and education. We've used quite a bit of money on those issues. Those issues are now felt by the people. And I have recommended to you more than once that you need to visit a country and see. You need to go and see the water gushing out from the drilled water. For once in certain areas, Raya are now seeing real water which they can drink straight. They are now seeing roads.
You know what
They are now seeing.
is doing. He's assessing himself.
No.
Governors,
Can you
and
speak
that's why
for
the
Wajir?
importance of this.
Talk about
forum.
Wajir.
Can you
Talk
speak
about
for all governors?
Mandera.
So that's what
Talk
he's
about
saying.
Mandera.
Not even that.
Talk about Kisi.
Not even that.
Talk about Mohammed.
Governors
Okay.
should
Talk
not
about
assess
Elgeyo Marakwet.
themselves.
No.
That's why, for example,
We are not assessing
saying
ourselves.
the
But
reason
there is water.
for
Just give him
the
time.
reason for such a forum is for stakeholders who are legitimate to come and assist our governors to assess themselves. You cannot review yourself.
No.
You may think you've
We are
done well,
putting on the table.
but maybe, according to other stakeholders, you are not doing well, and that's why it's important.
E.g.,
I'm actually
is the
Critics
national
have
government
also,
doing well?
you've talked
I'm
about
actually
them.
very disappointed
Okay.
that because of the
Figures.
personal approach by the
Statistics
chairman,
don't hit. Don't hit.
such some stakeholders, like now the national executive,
Critics
may
have
not-
pointed out.
may
Critics
not
have pointed.
even,
You talked
know,
about the
But
large
they have
man.
not even delivered
because
on
you
the
are attacking
laptops.
Okay,
them.
let's
Even
You are
one thing.
attacking
Let's move
them
Where are the
daily.
laptops?
Sorry,
Where are the laptops?
the laptops.
Yes.
The
Have you
laptops,
even delivered
are
on the
they
laptops?
divorced?
That is the
No,
issue
no,
of
no.
Because
national
I deal
government.
with
But anyway,
devolution. Are they divorced?
listen.
Are the laptops
Let
divorced?
us talk.
Bring me
Gentlemen,
to the village.
let's stop being personal. Of course, Governor, that's an issue of the national government.
Yes.
It's not really here
Yeah,
to talk
that-
about
that's what
that.
I'm-
He's not
yeah.
here to talk about
But
that.
he is telling me
Of
that
course,
they are
critics
concerned.
again. I've talked about some of the bills that we've seen. One that originated from the Senate, talking about flags for governors and their names and the title excellencies. You're talking about the large man syndrome. And people have been saying, are senators just jealous of what titles governors have? And critics have, or the powers of will, and critics have been saying, couldn't you have used that time to do or to formulate better bills?
When the bill on flags emblems was first introduced, the intention was very good initially. And this was to say that Kenyans rejected the big man in Nairobi and wanted in the 47 counties to see different kind of leadership with the hope that over time we can affect Nairobi with that modeling. So the intention initially was good, but I am afraid to admit that over time, I think we got a bit petty on both sides, both in terms of those who are defending flags, because you will hear Isaac Ruto saying, this flag, I don't need it. Then why are you defending it? Let it go. So over time, we became petty, and to be honest with you, I don't think that discussion is important.
One of the issues the transitional authority is looking at. A human resource report talks about positions in the county government, and most of county governments not really following the law in terms of employing 30% of people from other regions. Do you think that is a problem?
That is a huge problem, because you see the 30% requirement is a requirement of the law. That's number one. But equally worrying is the speed and magnitude of fresh employment. I am told, I could be wrong, but I have heard about 150,000 new staff have been employed in the past 1 year by county governments. And that is worrying. It's almost a third of the already bloated public service.
Let me get your response to that.
In terms of employments, first of all, on the question of 30%, the law also requires that you advertise these positions. And there is a county public service board that interviews.
Yes.
And they can only interview the people who actually applied. If you have not applied, you cannot be shortlisted. You cannot appear before the interview. Now, if in that interview list, there is no one, there is no 30%, or even if one or two turn up and they do not meet the qualification, what are you supposed to do?
That is the question.
That's the question. What are you supposed to do? So that is what the Senate should tell us, and the National Assembly.
What is he supposed to do?
As of now,
right. What are they supposed to do?
My understanding of the 30% rule, my personal view, is that it is a progressive.
Yes.
It's a progressive realization.
Yes.
Once you hire, then you start asking how many from this quarter do I have, how many from this group do I have. So it's not something that is instant, and I'm not very worried about that. My worry is on the size, because and the argument always is national government is also large.
Now,
but why should
let us take an example.
Because let me put that into context for our viewers, because the national government had these employees. These functions are devolved to county governments, the same employees that should go to county governments and work. He's talking about 150,000 then being employed after that. Why?
Right. I'm not aware about the 150,000. I'm not sure about the veracity of the statistics he's quoting. But one point I want to make very clear is that indeed there are employments going on in the counties. Take, for example, Nairobi. Nairobi is over, if you were to talk about the numbers, they are about 11,000. Yeah? Or if close to, I think thereabouts. But they are still going on to employ. That is an over-establishment. But check, 11,000 of who? Let me just finish.
Just because it's important. It's important. I'll give you time. Has the transitional authority frozen new employments?
No, they have no authority to freeze anything. It is the responsibility of the counties to decide how to proceed forward. Because you see, let me again give you the correct example. There are 11,000 in Nairobi former local authority staff. If you want an economist, you will not get from this group. I have seen in my own county that out of the 500 or so who are in local authorities, only 30 have certificates beyond diploma, up to that. Now, what would those others do in our offices? What would they deliver to me in terms of sorting out the CIDP question? How do they consult one age? How do they help us to deliver the service? Where are the engineers if I want to deliver water? Where are the engineers to handle roads? I want to handle hydropower generation. Who is going to do that? I must employ the technical staff that are required to deliver on our mandates. But you cannot tell us you use the people who used to collect revenue with rungus to continue collecting revenue in the 21st century. Surely,
Can I
we are
clarify?
not county
Can I
government.
clarify
Let me also finish.
Okay, give me.
Also listen. There are staff from the national government who have always been posted to our areas. In fact, some of them have become illiterate. Take, for example, the ones who are doing public health issues. I've got very many who are doing public health. When you check, they are drunkards, they are what? A large number of them are discipline cases. So instead of dealing with discipline over time, they were sent to the rural areas. And no one supervised them because the bosses were in Nairobi. Really, we'll have to confront the issue. And I want to tell you that we have agreed. And that is one of the issues that we have actually agreed together with the national government. And I want to thank the Ministry of Devolution because we discussed within the auspices of the Ministry of Devolution how to handle staff rationalization between now and June.
Right.
And that matter is properly within context.
Okay, we need to wind up now.
The law does not oblige counties to take on board people who are serving in the national government. What the law requires is simple, that when you want to recruit, you give them the first opportunity to compete.
Yes.
And if they are not taken, the national government will sort out. And we are working on a legal framework of what happens
And
to
we have
such
agreed
people.
on that.
But also, on the other hand, what we are seeing is a complete rejection of anybody who was associated with national government functions before. And I think the problem is still the same, Hussein, the big man syndrome.
No.
Every governor would want to be employing their own people so that they can look in charge, and that is not good for the country.
I'm going to plead with both of you again to be very brief because now we have to wind up. The issue of devolving functions.
Yes.
Where we stand as a nation today, nobody really knows what's going on. But from the transitional authority, what has some of the things that have not been transferred yet, including include roads, county roads, regional authorities, and registration of assets.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
And much more. Issues around environment, issues around water, and there's a raft of issues. That is why we were quite surprised and shocked when we heard the president twice saying he has devolved everything.
Has he? Has that happened?
Well, I'm aware. The first meeting the president had with governors, he said, gentlemen, if the constitution says functions be devolved, I have no problem with it. I remember it was even aired.
Yes.
But let me say, the notion that has been created, especially by Isaac Ruto, is that the president is playing around with transfer of functions and making sure that some functions are not devolved. No, let me just clarify. It's important for public consumption. The role of devolving functions is constitutional. There is nothing the president can do to obstruct a constitutional process. That's number one. Number two is that the institutions that are critical are two. One, transitional authority. Two, Senate.
Have they been
Senate,
involved?
the transitional authority gazettes the functions which have been devolved. If any county is unhappy with the decision of the gazettement, they appeal to Senate. Already the counties came and appeared before our devolution committee, appealing against certain functions they felt should have been devolved. The report is ready. It is being introduced in the House next week for adoption on transfer of functions. So the introduction of the presidency into this debate is diversionary, it is petty, and it just confirms where we started. That the problem that we are seeing, the challenges are actually self-inflicted.
At Flamingo
especially
Beach.
through the chair, because he has some other agenda we don't know about.
The conference at Flamingo Beach Hotel some weeks ago, the president specifically looked at you
and asked me
and asked you
whether the functions have been transferred.
And you nodded.
No, I decided not to confront the president with a no publicly. I just decided that, look, he's asking me.
And that is the confusion we are talking about.
He asked, haven't I transferred all the functions, Isaac Ruto, and you are here? I just decided to keep quiet.
You nodded.
Because there was no business. I cannot stand up and say, no, Mr. President, you are saying, you are telling people a lie. The president cannot tell a lie.
No,
but he can only give a misleading
Mr.
statement.
President, because
that was
this and this has not been transferred. In fact, the only thing which is remaining,
I only got worried when he repeated it last week
is on
in
the
his
issue
statement that he has transferred everything.
Let me talk about roads, because I saw Isaac Ruto doing some propaganda about roads. With regard to roads,
the word propaganda,
roads,
you're a member of
roads roads fall within what we call concurrent functions, meaning both the national government and the county governments have some functions over roads. Now, what is remaining, because they have been revolved, we are remaining with one thing, and legislation again is coming before the two houses of parliament within the next 7 days. Classification of roads, so that we know what the law says is that the national government will be responsible for national trunk roads.
Yes.
While county governments will be responsible for county roads.
Yes.
But there is no definition of county road, national whatever. So we'll have to reclassify roads and see, given the resources counties
May I
have,
explain
what
that
roads they
Yeah,
can use.
Because, let me explain that one. First of all, functions have not entirely been transferred. What the president, the statement he has made twice is not right. And I think the Transition Authority should clarify that. And I'm glad that he's also clarifying it. The point we are putting across is, for example, the roads. The Constitution clearly states that there are only two types of roads: national trunk road and two county roads. If it is not a trunk road and national, then it is a county road.
Okay.
Now, what they are trying to do is to redefine that so that they can claw back the roads back to the national government. Take, for example, the ones in the urban areas. How can urban roads be national roads? How can roads in the villages become county roads? But they told us that Kera must continue and Kura must continue. And then they keep telling us that there is a huge wage bill. But they are continuing to create parastatals to do exactly what the counties are supposed to be doing.
Okay, we have 2 minutes.
So where is the issue?
I've really pleaded. I have really pleaded with both of you to be very, very brief.
Okay.
We have to talk about going forward.
Yeah.
But just before that, and I really plead with you, 30 seconds for both of you. You have said time and time and again that people out to kill devolution. Who?
Yes, the people out to
why?
kill devolution are the ones who are becoming revisionist, clawing back what Kenyans actually decided
Who?
that are devolved
Who are
issues.
these people?
It is appearing that the Jubilee government at the moment is on that mission, and they have roped in both
You are a
some
member of the
aspects of
Jubilee.
it. Yes,
You are
I
a
am
member of Jubilee
Jubilee.
coalition.
I am Jubilee, but elements within my own party are actually clawing back the functions back to central government. They don't seem to believe that there was need for devolution, and there are two things that are going to happen. We will appeal to the Supreme Court to decide on this together with the constitutional courts, and we may also be going to Kenyans to make a final decision on
Okay.
this.
30 seconds.
Hussein, devolution cannot die. It is not capable of dying. Nobody has the capacity to kill it, because
You
the
can make it
Constitution has self-executing mechanism to preserve the life of devolution. So the argument about death is propaganda which has been manufactured by somebody who wants to ride on a very important issue to Kenyans for political gains. I want to say,
Which ones?
in a nutshell,
Governors?
for us, I don't think devolution is being killed. All what I can say is that devolution is facing certain challenges which can be addressed through consultation and cooperation,
And that is
not
where-
through
and that is where-
competition
Yes.
and confrontation.
Then let's talk.
Exactly. You've
Let's
actually
talk.
finished the interview, because what I was going to ask next is, after this 1 year, the challenges you've seen, what next? Both
We
of
need
you are
to talk.
stakeholders, and everybody's a custodian of this in this
Yes.
country. So what next?
The next issue is, let us talk, let us respect intergovernmental relations. Let us respect the institution of the summit. Let the summit decisions be implemented. And let us ensure that the structures established within that intergovernmental system are actually done and respected. And let it be understood that the process is consultation between the two levels of government. No level of government will try to control the other one or to try to talk down against the other one. Neither are we, as county governments, also going to necessarily talk at the national government. We would like to consult. But the moment they issue instructions, we are not taking instructions.
Hussein, I also want to promise Kenyans that there is a bright future under the devolved government. For us in the Senate, I want to echo what the Chair of Governors has said. We want to see more talking. But at the same time, I want to urge the respect for institutions of oversight, especially the county assemblies and the Senate. And finally, I want to assure Kenyans that for us in the Senate, we are extremely focused. We will viciously defend counties and protect counties. And any person, for example, in the fundraising aspect, who tries to undermine funding to counties will meet our wrath. But on the other hand, we will be very vicious with accountability and will not be told otherwise. We will not be cowed on this one. So, Mr. Chairman, we are there for you, but prepare to be prudent and responsible. Thank you.
That is our responsibility. Prudence and fiscal responsibility is a principle in the Constitution. I don't need it from Kindiki. It is very clear. We will proceed.
I thought we were winding at this.
I would also like to
what's happening again.
May I also request Kindiki to
No,
be...
it's not Kindiki. It's the Constitution. It's the Constitution. Me, I'm relying on the Constitution.
Okay.
To keep fidelity to the Constitution.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Chair of the Council of Governors, Isaac Ruto, who's also the Bomet County Governor. Professor Kithure Kindiki, Senator Tharaka Nithi County, also the leader of Majority in the Senate. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you.